At about, I don't know, 1,500 feet, maybe 2,000 feet. Your typical limestone karst topography in the Sierra Madre Oriental. You got a nice species of orchid over there, see? And it smells pretty, it smells pretty nice. And apparently this ant thinks so too. Looks like that ant probably hurts if it stinks. It's overwhelmingly humid. You got a kind of aeroid right here. Aeraceae. You commonly see these if you're at the higher latitudes, like 30 degrees north latitude. Only place you're going to see these is in boutiques and maybe, the planters in office buildings and stuff like that. Look at those roots, too. Nice development. Just holding it, holding this guy adhered to the branch. There's the leaves of this guy. Let you get up in there and see what's going on. Can you see his pollinia? And those trees up there, that's Bursera cimaruba. It's the subtropical version of a Bursera, not a desert one. So you still got that exfoliating, smooth bark, but the leaves are much broader. Frankincense family. Probably smells delightful too. You scrape some resin off that. And then over here you got a species of cactus, Rhipsalis. Now this genus, there's a species, all cacti are entirely from the Americas. But you do get one or two species in the African continent, and they were brought there by birds. And there are species of this. There are species of Rhipsalis in the genus Rhipsalis. And I believe this is Rhipsalis basifera. So it's an epiphytic cactus. It's still succulent, but it's got little white berry fruits on it that the birds eat, and they go shit them out, So if a bird was taking a transatlantic flight, however many millions of years ago, it might have shit out one of these little berries. They landed on the African continent. They got established. See, there's another one up there. Rhipsalis doing real nice. And it's humid enough and warm enough here that they're everywhere. This is a weedy plant, And it's another one of those hipster cactus boutique plants, but of course here it's basically like a weed, But they're pretty easy to grow. So they have succulents during times of drought, during the dry season, they can hang on, and then of course just once it starts raining again, you get those tropical storms. They just juice up again. And then in the winter, when it dries out, the rainy season's mostly in the summer here, they're able to hang on and do the epiphytic thing. They don't even need any soil because they got all their moisture and nutrients stored in these little tubes, these little stems. Here's that orchid again. You can see that this cap, what we're paying attention to is not that top petal, but just beneath it, this fucking thing won't stop shaking. Anyway, you can see there's a cap. Basically, it protrudes out to the right. See it like that? That pink cap that's just beneath the top petal? So look at this one. This is that pink cap on, and then here's one where I took that pink cap off, exposing those two yellow knobs, which are the pollinia. Remember I said orchids, like milkweeds, are one of the only plant families to have pollinia. Now, it's not because they're related. It's just convergent. It's parallel evolution. They both decided that instead of expressing their pollen in tons of dusty little granules, they're going to aggregate it into a pollinia. So milkweed do the same thing, and it's basically just a super compact little pollen packet, and each flower only gets 2 of them. But again, it's under that little knob. So here's the knob before it's been ripped off, and then here's the knob after some dirty dago jackass like me has come and tore the knob off to expose the pollinia. So, the basic pollination thing going on here is that, these emit a smell too, so I'd assume they got some nectar in there. Or maybe they don't. Maybe it's all just smell. But a pollinator is going to come on there and then basically pick up. He's going to come onto where the source of the nectar is, which is that labellum, that lower petal. That's a safe word in an orchid dungeon, labellum. It's that bottom petal, which, many of them, there's thousands of variations on a labellum, depending on what species you are. So that's like the main attractant that a lot of orchidaceae use to attract the pollinators. He's going to come to that labellum, and then in doing so, he's going to pick up some of that pollinia on the top of his head. One of those 2 pollinia. And they're kind of sticky, so they'll stick to his head, and then he'll bring it up to the next flower, where the stigma is actually just below that pollinia, and he'll deposit one there on the next flower, and then of course that will then mature into a little. The fruit on these is of course a 3-lobed capsule, and with tons of tiny seeds. All orchids are mycorrhizal, so their seeds are not. You got to take a microscope to look at them, but their seeds, they're basically wind dispersed, easily picked up on wind currents because they're so tiny. And the thing is, most orchids need mycorrhizal symbiosis. They need a fungus in their early stage. I mean, they need a fungus at all periods of their life stages, but especially to germinate, because they're so tiny. They don't have much nutrients packed into them like most seeds do. Like a bean, say, which has a large endosperm. So the orchids they got to land somewhere ideal, and then and then basically set up an agreement with the fungus, and then they get going. But you can see this guy, however many years ago, a tiny little a tiny little dusty seed landed on this microscopic seed, and then germinated, and then of course you get a plant. Who knows how old this is? Decade or two, who knows? Maybe less. Things grow fast as hell here. There you go. There's another species of Nyctaginaceae, flowering at night. They're already done. It's getting too hot for them, but looks like these will be going off around 6 p.m. tonight. So if you want to come back and see the show, you could do that. And you normally see these. I think I've seen these in. This is another Abuelita garden plant. This is another Mexican granny garden plant. But it's nice to see where it's native, growing on a karst, on a limestone. Wonderful species of Mala mujer, Niduscolus, Euphorbiaceae. A little bit unfriendly. I guess the most diverse families in the Sierra Madre Oriental are Asteraceae, followed by Cactaceae, followed by Fabaceae, the pea family, and then you got I think Boraginaceae too. And Rubiacea's got quite a few as well, but not as many as you got to go to the rock outcroppings. Look at that. See, that's where you get a lot of the cool stuff that's got an edge. Nice agave right there. Tillandsia usneoides, Spanish moss. And this bastard, which, I seen this last time I was in Nuevo Leon with these extremely pubescent leaves. The new growth is heavily orange and pubescent. And then, of course, the underside's got this heavy indumentum. Right there, the fuzz. You know the indumentum, the fuzz. What do we got here? We got some cool Pteridaceae, maybe an Astrolipus or two. I'm not even gonna fuck with it. I have no idea. Tropical fern diversity blows my mind. There you go. Speaking of Rubiaceae, I think this is a Hamelina. I forget the genus name, goddammit. I'll have to look it up. Begins with an H. Almost looks like a Bouvardia, but it's not. And of course, there you get the fruits. Wonder what they taste like. You got a bunch of different kinds of Psychotria here, too. There's that thing. I think it's a Rutaceae. It might be totally off, but there it is in flower. So anyway, it does seem a little bit unstable of an environment to be growing on, in terms of a substrate, because you could just fall off at any minute. See, there's that Decatropis. I forgot the genus name. That's a species of Rutaceae, citrus family. And that guy's just growing out of a cracking rock. So, like I said, it does seem, like an unstable environment, not the best, not ideal. But the benefit here, though, is, of course, that you can outcompete. If you could grow on this, you could grow, you could outcompete any of this other shit, because it's so hot, it's so humid, and there's so much moisture that stuff just blows up. It's thriving. You'll quickly take one of these, you try to grow on the ground, you quickly get it shaded out and outcompete it. But out there, nobody can really mess with you. You got your own little niche, your own little spot. See, look at that species of Opuntia, the prickly pear that's growing right there. Look at that guy. Okay? Then you got Mala mujer. And what the shit are they growing in? Look at those. Okay, and these things, this monocot, it's a species of Commelinaceae, probably a Tridoscanthia, maybe a Commelina. God damn it, this thing won't. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to try to fuck with My hands are a little shaky right now. Whatever. Go fuck yourself. Oh, here's a species of Astrolipus, I think. Terradaceae for sure. You got those margins of the leaflets rolled in, curved in over there. And then you got a little agave germinating right there. Just growing on the wall, you know. They hang out. It's so humid they could grow out on the wall, and they just slowly wiggle their roots into the rock. Just fully ensconced in a rock. No one's going to rip you out. Here's that Tradescanthia. Oh, yeah, here's another one. The Wandering Jew. They make these in a houseplants. They call them Wandering Jews. See, there's one of the flowers. Here's another species of Commelinaceae. It's the family of that guy right there. 3 petals. Parallel venation on the leaves. It's obviously a monocot. Just every little bit of the rock has got stuff growing in it. What is that? Is it a type of cyanobacteria? Piperaceae is another big family down here. One of the basal angiosperms. A lot of epiphytes in the Piperaceae. There's a Bursaris cimaruba. That broadleaf bastard. See that with the exfoliating bark? Alright, you gotta get the fuck out of here. Here we go. Anyway, look at this. So this is a tall, small tree. This is basically a tall shrub. It's in a poppy family, if you could believe that. It's a species of Begonia. You know, and you get a lot of variations on this, but they all have the same general leaf shape. You know, just basically a blade with those highly dentate lobes. You know, basically just dissected lobes. It's not too dissected, I guess, but you know, and I've seen these in Michoacan. You'll see them down, you know, they go down into South America, I believe, too. Begonia is a pretty diverse genus. And then, of course, the fruits are mostly bird dispersed. They look like little berries, but they look like little arrows, kind of. So there's that Begonia. Here's a smaller one, a younger one, only about 5 feet tall. You could see, look at the indumentum on the other side of the leaf. That's a young leaf developing, coming out of the apex of this plant. Look how fuzzy that is. Very beautiful leaves. You get up there, just take a nice look. Take a gander, huh? I've seen them, you know, and again, I've seen these in Michoacan on the side of a cliff looking out over a cloud forest with like a 500-foot drop. Just doing fine, growing out of the rocks. They obviously like the exposure, you know. They don't do well under the canopy. They need a lot of exposure. So that's why, you know, you normally, at least where I've seen them is on cliffs. Growing with the agaves and with the shit and all the other things that are adapted to an arid microsite. Anyway, Begonia, everybody. Go find. There we go. There's a nice species of Euphorbia poinsettia family. Remember, Euphorbia have highly reduced flowers. What looks like a stamen is actually a single male flower. And the name of that, the safe word is Cyatheum. Cyatheum. And it's a weird sedge. If I cared more about sedges, which, you know, they're hard for me to really be enthusiastic about, I would probably be more excited about that. But that is a goddamn weird, it's a weird variation on one. And then, of course, we're just standing beneath a massive oak that's just laden with Tillandsia usneoides, all kinds of orchids and epiphytic, other epiphytic plants. Wonder what species of oak that is. It's been there a long time, though, it looks like, eh? Bromeliads, orchids, ferns. Maybe got some Pleopeltis up there? Who knows? I think this is abidance. It's everywhere. I don't know. Anyway, so there you go. There's some nice tropical mistletoes for you. The genus is Psittacanthus. Family's Loranthaceae. No relation to Santalacea. They might be in the same order. I have to look on it. I'm not sure. But Santalacea, of course, is the family of most of the mistletoes you get in the United States. This is an entirely different family. These are the tropical mistletoes. And if you go down to Australia, even there's a species of Loranthaceae that I believe is an actual tree. So it's a parasite that is like a small tree. You know, I forget the name of it though. But anyway, you can see those orange flowers are their widest genus is called the showy mistletoes. the Psittacanthus, and that's with a P, Psittacanthus. You know, but of course I can't really get up there because they're fucking 30 feet above the ground, you know. Hopefully you get a idea what's going on. So again, those orange flowers are not part of that oak tree. They're a parasite that's growing on it. And the whole thing just covered in Tillandsia usneoides, Spanish moss, of course, member of the Bromeliaceae family, and various ferns and orchids and what the shit. One thing I forgot to mention, since the tube on those flowers is elongated and kind of like an orangish red, they're probably pollinated by hummingbirds, which would make sense. It would explain you can't know if you can really tell right now, but there's basically a profusion of hummingbirds in that tree right there. You know, there's like 5 or 6. You can hear them, they're flying around. And, you know, it makes sense. They got an endless food source, all the nectar from the Psittacanthus. Oh, look at it. Look at a little begonia. Look at it. You see that? Real nice begonia. Who doesn't love a begonia, huh? It's got to take a real posturing asshole to not love a begonia. Pretty big genus. Anyway, here we got a species of cycad. One of the, quote, more primitive plants. It just looks like a palm. You know, in fact, if you ever seen one of those plants called a sago palm, sometimes they got them in Japanese restaurants, you know, if they're super tacky. You know, you also see them a lot in Florida. They're a common overplanted member of the horticultural atrocities of Florida. But anyway, that's a cycad. So they're kind of a conifer. They're a gymnosperm. They get cones on them that arise from most often arise from the base where the leaves come out. And they got kind of a caudex down there. This is probably a ceratozamia or a zamia. You also got Dioon up here too, but you know, I'm not too well versed in my cycad taxonomy right now, being that I rarely see them, you know, unless it's the Home Depot sago palms. Again, no relation to palms at all, no relation to ferns. Very primitive lineage of plants. You know, these were around when the dinosaurs were doing their thing. A very stiff, leathery foliage too. Kind of feels like plastic. And again, plants, I believe, tend to be male or female, so they're generally dioecious. What is this, a bean? Is it a species of phaseolus? I don't know. It's pretty thick. It's some pretty thick growth up here. All just growing on a limestone. The karst lifestyle. Easily dissolving limestone. And then you can see over that's not a cycad, it's just a palm. But they look remarkably similar. Of course, same, you know, pinnate branches arising from a base of a little caudex and what the shit. Okay, so we're in the state of Tamaulipas in El Cielo, the Biosphere Reserve. And here's what appears to be a species of Podocarpus, which, believe it or not, despite its broad leaves, is a conifer. So Podocarpus is mostly southern hemisphere. You only get a handful of them in Mexico. There's a lot of diversity in South America and, you know, Australia and New Zealand, etc. But here's a species of Podocarpus. It's a Podocarpus. I'm not sure the species. There's a couple endemic here, but regardless, it gets a little. Looks like a berry. You know, it looks like an arrow, but technically, again, it's a gymnosperm. It's a conifer. It's a very primitive fruit. You know, remember taxus, yews are a conifer as well, but they get what looks like a berry. It's technically an arrow, but and again, it looks like broad leaves. When you get up and close and look at them, you can see the venation's pretty parallel. You know, they don't have a lot of cross venation. It's still a relatively primitive model. Could you say that? Could you say primitive? A lot of people don't like when you say that because it's modern. It's a modern version of a primitive lineage, but it is. It is a podocarp. There you go. And you got a species of maple as well. So we're high enough now that you can get the maples, which of course, you know, you normally don't think of as a tropical tree. They like the cool temperatures, and they like some moisture. And you got, what the fuck is this? Is it just a maple or is that sweet? I think this is a liquidambar. We'll go check it. It's a liquidambar. See, there's the fruits. You know these if you live in the south. Sweet gum is the name of them. They're pretty common street tree as well. Oh, look at that nice oak. Wonder what that is. But there's what the leaves look like. Just minutely dentate on the margins right there. See, it's just minutely toothed. And then you got kind of a star-shaped leaf. And of course in the fall they turn a bright red. You know, they're just deciduous. But, you know, I didn't know that this was a common component of the cloud forest until I was down in southern Oaxaca in the Sierra Mije, way up top. Way up top there. You know, you get high enough and where it's, basically it's got the temperature of San Francisco. The year-round temperature of San Francisco. You know, not too hot, not too cold. It just rains a lot more than San Francisco does in the summertime. And sweet gum is everywhere. The Liquidambar, styraciflua. Oh, there's a big-ass Podocarpus. These are big. Holy shit. I should have done my research more. I forgot these grew down here. Podocarpaceae, north of the equator. Which, you know, you don't get very much of. They're mostly southern hemisphere, like I said. But and I believe, again, another primitive lineage of plants, of conifers. And then just all over the ground, you got a whole host of plants that were growing up in a canopy, the epiphytes. You should look at all that moss. You got a whole host of plants, you know, bromeliads mostly. They were growing up in a canopy and just, you know, then the branches fell off. Kind of got the short end of the stick right there. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, the tillandsias, they grow like weeds. What's that? Is that a silage? Is that a selaginella? Or a mass? Is that a musco? Welcome to the cloud forest. And you know, people weren't coming here for a while because it got a little hot. You know, I think you know, the cartels had some, they got a little hyphy for a minute. They were just, you know, murdering innocent civilians. I believe in 2010 there was a massacre. They were trying to send a message to the government and just, you know, just engaging in basically terrorism. And look at that. And so people didn't want to come here, understandably, but I guess it's chilled out a little bit. You know. Who knows? We'll see. Everybody where we are is you know, muy amable. How do you say that? Nice. They're pretty nice. You know, but it's just you never know who you might bump into, you know, in Ciudad Victoria to the north or you know, anywhere else. But whatever. What are you gonna do? You're gonna just stay inside and play with your prick your whole life? I mean, because you're scared. Just, you know, be smart. Don't act like a jack off. Exercise a little bit of street smarts. You know, there's some situations you just can't do much. But oh, look at this. It's a species of orchid that fell from the top. Epiphytic orchid. Did you know that the orchids are technically succulents? And it's because they got this, so they got a pseudobulb. So that's why they can grow epiphytically. They can dry out up on the branches way up there. And they could dry out, you know, because they got all their energy stores in this little pseudobulb. You know, if you get during the dry season or whatever, say it doesn't rain for a few weeks. But of course, we're here in the summer, we're here in a wet season. Most of Mexico's summer rain, except for Baja. I wonder what species this is. It was doing well, whatever it was, until it fell. Maybe I'll put it back up on it. Oh, look at that guy. This guy's set up. He's set up perfectly here. He's probably very toxic too. You know, were you to eat him? I think most newts are. They contain a lot of toxins in there. I know the one we got in up in California is one of the most toxic animals ever. You could eat it, you know. So that's kind of nice though. If you think about like a feral cat eating one of those things, it's the end of the cat. What else we got going on? Just tons of ferns. Tons of goddamn fern diversity. Is this a Viteria? No, that's actually an angiosperm. Oh, this is a Rolldana or a Tithonia, I believe. Asteraceae. One of the tree asters. And there you go. This branch fell down from way up there. Here's a nice illustration of some of the stuff that's grown up there. I believe this is a Pleopeltis, or it's an Elaphoglossum. Either way, it's a fern. Let me see if there's any sporangia. Oh yeah, there you go. There's some sorry. See right there? Oh, look at that. More of that Koanophyllon alpina, Orobancaceae. Of course, all dried out, but, you know, doing the parasite thing. Probably on this, can't tell what the hell tree it is. I can't even see the canopy because there's so much other shit growing up there. Here you got a nice, one of the nice epiphytic cacti. Everything's just covered in ferns. And again, the substrate is limestone. And you can imagine limestone in a tropical environment just dissolves rapidly. It weathers so fast. Here's that Podocarpus again. Remember, it's a conifer. Even though it's not what most would consider a conifer. Gives nereids up the wazoo. And you could see, I mean, everywhere it's just the rock is just weathering so easy. There you go. There's a big maple with a giant fucking bromeliad in it. You got tons of peperomias too. Piperaceae, it's one of the basal angiosperms. Begonias. Oh, it's a nice salvia. But it's Salvia mexicana. I don't know. Looking right there. There's probably caves everywhere beneath us. Because again, this rock just weathers so easily and creates these little sinkholes. On the road up here, there were sinkholes. I mean, not really sinkholes, just basically entrances to underground caverns where the water has eroded the base rock and then, of course, drains on the inside of the mountain, basically carving out a cave. There's probably a massive series of caverns. Oh, look at that piece of garbage out there. How about that? There's probably just a massive series of caverns directly beneath my feet. So anyway, we got a canopy of oaks. You got some Quercus species. I think Quercus germana is here too. You got a bunch of maples. The Liquidambar, the sweet gum, Liquidambar, styraciflua, and then just, of course, the Podocarp is everywhere. Which I'm so enamored to see these. These are great. I mean, they're fucking great trees. And they're an old lineage too. And they got a lot of diversity, mostly in the southern hemisphere. And they got members that look like redwood trees. They get, you know, big conifer-like bark. They get huge. They have more conifer-like foliage. You know, they got what look like needles that are in the same family. And again, that fruit is like I don't know if you call it a drupe or a berry or an aril or what, but it's technically a cone. Oh, look at it. Tillandsia usneoides, the Spanish moss. And it's a rather healthy population. And then the Tillandsia has ferns growing out of it, out of its bundle. And the soil here is probably so rich. But I believe it just started raining in the last couple, the last week or so. So it's still, you know, a lot of the mushrooms haven't come up yet. I don't know if they got late rains or what. Oh, look at all those agaves just growing on the side of it. Limestone cliff. Oh yeah, there's some orchids up there too. This limestone rock wall that's completely covered, due to the humid climate, completely covered in lithophytes. And you got some ficus here too. I don't know where it went though. I don't think there's any around here. What's going on over here? Oh, it looks like somebody threw up on this rock. Look at that fungus. Isn't that nice? It's just that fungus melting after it's produced its spores. Yeah, apparently it's not too early for fungi. Look at this polypore. Look at this juicy bastard. What types of compounds do you think he's got in his tissue? Is that a polypore? I don't know. No, it looks more like a hedgehog fungus. But again, my knowledge of mycology is somewhat limited. Unless it's mushroom season, then I get a brief refresher. But got some friends that are much more knowledgeable about this kind of shit than me. Here's a nice, is that an Acerum? An aeroid? Oof, pungent. But there's what you call a karst lifestyle. See, just it looks like a little inlet, in the side of this rock wall, and then it just, goes deep into a fucking cave, which God knows how deep down that goes. But again, limestone just readily dissolves, at least relatively readily dissolves compared to other rocks in rainwater, in acidic rainwater. And when it rains so goddamn much here too, we're in the subtropics, you can imagine how easy. Probably a good home if you're a bat. More of that Koanophyllon. Oh, this is nice. There you go. There's a oh, look, here's a Botrychium. A grape fern, they call it, because when they send their spores out, God, I'm so bad with ferns. When they send their spores out, they got a little sporophyll that comes out. It's basically a little spike that looks like it's got these little yellow globs on it and that's how they send out their spores. They're one of the earlier lineages of ferns, as far as I know, and their foliage kind of feels like plastic, But talk about mycorrhizae. These are heavily symbiotic with fungi on the ground, and I'm sure, like I said, you got a very rich fungal ecosystem going on down there. After so many eons of decomposing leaf litter in a subtropical environment down here at 23 degrees latitude. So anyway, this guy just came up though. Here in the dainty little bastard department, we got some peperomias. Piperaceae. Again, one of the more earlier branching lineages of angiosperms, of flowering plants, and they're mildly succulent. And there's a lot, this is a genus, and I believe a family overall, that is very adapted to growing lithophytically, growing in the exposed environments. They're mildly succulent. They grow on rocks. They grow epiphytically, lithophytically and epiphytically, on rocks and on other plants, on trees. And there's a lot of diversity in Mexico. Anyway, there you go. There's a nice species of Salvia. What is this, puberula? I forget the goddamn species. But I've seen this before. It's pretty common in horticulture in the Bay Area. But here it is in habitat. Grown beneath oak and podocarps. And of course the ground is just littered with selaginella. And a myriad diversity of ferns. God damn, look at it. The upper labia on that goddamn flower's fuzzy. Anyway, there's the calyxes, and of course the flowers, the corollas are right there, and the calyxes are down there. The corollas, basically when they're done being pollinated, they fall off, and you get a calyx with about, I think it's 4 seeds per calyx. And the seeds just mature in there. Chia, of course, is a, which has been rebranded as a, yuppie health food drink, is, of course, a species of salvia. I believe that's a Salvia hispanica. But the same thing's going on with generally all the salvia seeds. In the acanthus family, Acanthaceae, you got these little shrimp flowers. Zygomorphic bilateral symmetry. These are everywhere. They're fucking ubiquitous. But of course, you know, if you want to see these in the States, you got to go to one of those little botanic garden conservatories and stuff. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a fern room at Garfield Park, you know? The little fern dungeon they got in that conservatory. It's pretty nice. And of course, it's limestone, but you can't tell because it's just draped and it's just draped in lithophytes. Peperomias, Selaginella, mosses, various kinds of ferns that I wish I could tell you more about, but I can't because I'm not a big fern guy. Maybe one day. How many different species of fern you got on here? Oh, you got some toxicodendron too. Some poison ivy. Is that an elaphoglossum or a orchid? No, this might be an elaphoglossum, one of the tongue ferns. It's got the foliage that feels like plastic. Got some Pleopeltis. All just growing on the trunk of this oak tree, which I think is Quercus albocincta, but I can't, you know, the leaves are so goddamn high up, I can't tell. Various species of mosses and lichens. Oh, look at it. Damn. Just, you know, I'm overridden. Overwhelmed. The poison oak is doing fine. So you got elaphoglossum. I have no idea what the hell that is. What species of fern this is. Got the Pleopeltis. You like Pleopeltis? I have a bunch of bromeliads. Some tillandsias. No shortage of places to grow. Oh, look, it's a dahlia. Do you like dahlias? Everybody likes dahlias. Pretty large genus in Asteraceae. And of course, look at those, you got those filaries and you got those, I don't know if those are caliculi or what. Those little bracts. You know, and then of course you get some species of dahlia that get upwards of 12 or 14 feet tall. Tons of flowers. Oh. I don't know if I can get up there. How the shit you gonna get up there? I have to climb. Oh shit, there's poison ivy. Oh great. Well, who fell down over here? Get up! It's a large Tillandsia. He's still going strong though, you know? Might have fallen from his former glory, but he's still doing his thing. Mala mohair. What else we got? Oh, what's that? Oh, that's a something in Lauraceae. It looks like an avocado pit. But there's a little radical coming out. That might be just wild avocado. Okay, more fun with epiphytes. Look at this guy. This is a species of orchid. It's not blooming, but that is certainly Orchidaceae. Just looks like a piece of bamboo growing on, you know, growing epiphytically on its tree. On this oak. There's more up there. Orchids are a monocot, so, you know, their leaves, of course, can look like grass in many cases. God damn. Tillandsia diversity like mad. Oh, what's the type of pine? How many fascicles you got? Oh, 5. Maybe it's Pinus pseudostrobus. 5-needled pine growing in Acer Madre oriental. Oh, is that a spot I can dip my ass? Might have to wash my ass here. It's like it's just like the Starbucks sink, but it's bigger. Oh God, the mosquitoes are fucking terrible. But look at these earth stars. Look at these fungus. These fungi. See, and then of course when a raindrop hits them, you can see the little ejection of spores coming out right there. Look at that. Look at the solanum. Doesn't that look friendly? So it's a species of solanum, certainly in the family Solanaceae. A lot of them get those spines. Spines coming right out of the veins. And then there's the fruit. So it's basically, what you're looking at is a tropical nightshade. It's really muscled up on its defenses. Jesus. Those aren't spines. They're what you call prickles. They're just basically protrusions of the epidermal tissue. And they say it's a cute little fruit, huh? Wonder how bad that'll make you throw up or maybe die if you eat it. Who knows? They got also, you know, being in Solanaceae, same family as Datura and Brugmansia and what the shit. A lot of them have a lot of toxic alkaloids. You can always tell alkaloids because generally they end in INE. Caffeine, mescaline, scopolamine, what's the one this one has? Scopolamine? I don't know. You get the idea. What a nasty little fern. He's a nasty little bastard. These are the sexy leaves, and these are the sterile leaves. So these are just collecting light, and then these are producing spores. Well, they're not actively producing spores, but they will when he's ready to go. You can see. Let me get over there. Oh, he's got the margins curled in. How about that though, huh? Dimorphic leaves. Sexy leaves and sterile leaves. It's hard to tell, but this is a species in a sunflower family. No idea which one yet. Probably some in Eupatoriae, in the Eupatoria tribe, because look at how prominent and long those styles are. Looking like little hairs, but you get up close, you can see it's about 4 or 5 florets per capitula right there. And indeed, those are styles. And you can see the phyllaries on the side of the capitula right there. It's a species of Asteraceae. See little florets? Again, probably Eupatoria tribe. Long-ass styles. Who knows? God, the mosquitoes are terrible. I'm going to start drinking my own piss and walking backwards. Kick me in. Oh, now look at it. It's a species of yew. I think this might be Taxus globosa, which is a very rare species of Mexican yew. Which don't look like much, but you know, you got to remember, this is a conifer that's got a lineage going back to the Jurassic, I believe, at least. And they're not, of course, they're riparian. They like the shade. They like the understory, which we're certainly under right now. God damn. But no arrows. You know, this is probably a 6 or 7 year old plant at least, maybe 10 or 15. Shit, that's crazy. I wasn't expecting to see one of these. It's a relic. Up here, again, elevation is about 4,400 feet. There you go, Taxus globosa. The Mexican yew. Hey there, guy. Where you going? Can I ask you a question? Where you going with that? Why you look like that? Why you got so much blue on you? Huh? What are you doing right now? Where you going? You know, you stand out so much, things might want to eat you, which makes me think you're probably pretty toxic or have some sort of a dissuasion mechanism to prevent the predators, huh? No? You want to answer my questions. All right, whatever.